Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Memorial Day weekend Sunday, I guess you could say the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend, 2012. And I was gonna do this last night, but I fell asleep, so go figure. Um, but I was listening to somebody on actually on the DA site told me that Sasuke419, and I'm sorry if I pronounced the name incorrectly, um, did a video where he mentioned me. Now, he mentioned the fact that I put a video up. I guess of a video that I guess Laser X5 or John, whoever, that Laser X5 had done. Now, I'm not too sure if this is Laser X5. It could just be somebody that doesn't like the comics or anything. Because over at the Sega forums, they call themselves Destroyer of Knothole, and I think they call themselves something else elsewhere. So I don't know if it is him or not, if it is them or not. So I can't really say. If it is, then hey, he's a teenager. You know, he's a teenager. If he likes something, let him like something. Like I say, if he's a teenager, let him express himself. Teenagers will express themselves and say what they want. And then later on, they'll look back on it and say, maybe I shouldn't have said that. You know what I'm saying? But we don't know that yet. But anyway, Sasuke419 brought up a lot of good points and things. He mentioned. Well, he kind of mentioned basically that he does acknowledge that he is a fan of the Saturday morning cartoon. He's a fan, always has been, and all that. But the thing is, he also basically overall he's kind of sick and tired of people kind of not like having the facts or anything. Kind of misjudging something for what it's not, and I'll provide the link to his video down below. But again, he brought up some good points. A lot of people feel as though that basically judge Ian for what Ian has done. Don't take into consideration that Ian Flynn has done more than what Ken and Carl have done. Basically, what he's saying is that Ian Flynn, like many people have said, has done more for the comics so far than Ken and Carl ever have. I mean, he even threw out a little bit of a question towards not just this person who they presume is Laser X5, and I can't say if they're right or not wrong, but also throws out a question towards everybody else. And the question was kind of like, when was the last time Ken and Carl ever did story arc after story arc after story arc, with a few fillers in between, but basically story arc after story arc after story arc? Keeping our interest, keeping our attention. And the only one that comes to mind at times is Endgame. The only one that might come to mind even closest to that in some ways in introducing a new villain is the world tour deal where Tails and Sonic went to go find Knuckles. I mean, not Knuckles, but Nagus. Went to go find Nagus. Now, Now, the thing is, I agree with the fact that Endgame, so far out of the Penders Bowlers era, if you will, is the only one so far that stands out. Now, I think he even mentioned, and again, I'll provide the link to his video down below. He even mentioned that back then, the only time that Sega really stepped in was during Endgame, and thus prevented Sally's death from ever happening. And he did bring up some good points. One was the fact that Sally had was selling merchandise. Her character was, I guess, was doing some good sales down in the Sega world in Australia. So basically they didn't want to see a character, I guess, that was providing some good sales in one of the Sega worlds suddenly be bumped off the map. And also I think they had big plans for her at the time or something. I'm not really sure. And he said that was the only time that Sega really got themselves involved. Now he did mention, and again I'll provide the link to the video below if I get this wrong, but he did mention that why Sega's kind of like getting involved as we speak at times with the comics. Because basically they want to, I guess, they want to make sure nothing goes wrong or something, but basically they just want to keep the characters the way they are, the way they look at them. He mentioned that the reason Sega is getting involved now, a lot more now at times, and again, I'll provide the link to the video below if I get anything wrong. It's Sasuke419. You can correct me if I get anything wrong. But basically, he said that the reason they're getting involved is they got to keep the characters like Sonic and Tails and Amy and Knuckles at close to the game counterparts as they're going to be. Basically, in other words, Sonic cannot be allowed to shed a tear. There cannot be cry or even shed a tear. There cannot be not that much development on any of the characters unless they're okay with it. So basically, that is why when people, let's say, read 237, basically felt it was lazy writing. Because here you had, according to one person, I'm not really sure about it, but according to one person that read the issue, it's like when Sonic, Tails, and Amy mentioned Sally's predicament and what happened to her, it's like, he just nonchalantly just mentioned it, like, oh yeah, Sonic, oh yeah, by the way, Sally was, oh yeah, one of the bad things that happened with Sally was roboticized and weaponized. Or something like that. And that's what people were looking at as lazy writing, because they didn't like the idea that Sonic didn't just come out and explain to the twins in a more expressive, if not more emotion, if not just have a little bit of emotion, like a tear or something like that, or a saddened look, or even a saddened look that kind of explains the situation. So I can, so basically that is what, everybody's been talking about, so that's basically what he means when he talks about Sega stepping in now. Sega's basically trying to say, look, we understand you have to do this. We understand you want to put some emotion here, but this is Sonic. He's not supposed to show emotion that much. He's supposed to be cool, And, and again, anybody can understand that. But it's not due to, Ian Flynn falling under the pressures of Sega at times. Yes, Ian has come out and said, that he has to sometimes do these things because of the mandates, but that's about it. He's not really falling under the pressure. I mean, they do let him do more. They are more lenient towards what he does, then I guess you could say they are. But yes, there are times that they can be a little, can be sticking the nose into the product when they don't need to be. I mean, so honestly, that's what I think Sasuke419 meant by by the fact that Sega's doing that now. And he does bring up some good points too. I don't remember Ken or Carl really doing that many story arcs. I mean, Endgame stands out perfectly. It's a good story arc. Excuse me. I had a burp there a second. As a good story arc, there's no doubt about it. But he gave a reason as to why that was happening, as to why Endgame was happening. And it's a reasoning we all looked up and read about, and he even said, go ahead and Google it. The reason Endgame happened, and the reason, as I mentioned just moments ago, and as he mentions in the video, the reason Sally's death was going to take place, or was taking place, is because Ken had come out and said he was bringing back the king, and with King Max around, back in charge, having Sally as the princess in her position was a moot point. So basically having her around didn't make any sense. But again, that was the only time that Sega really majorly stepped in along with the fans and said, look, you ain't going to do this. I mean, that goes back to what Ian Flynn once said, I guess according to one fan, when he mentioned that he was surprised that Sega gave the okay to do what I guess he did to Sally. Excuse me. I have some mucus there. But again, that's kind of what surprised him. Now, obviously we don't know exactly when the payoff, the climax, and all that's going to take place to this whole Mecha Sally arc, whatever, if you want to call it that. We don't know when the climax is going to take place. But whenever it happens, one thing Sasuke419 has to agree upon is that it's got to have a good payoff. If it doesn't have a good payoff, then what was the point? So far, all the story arcs, either the 3-parters, 4-parters, year-long, or whatever, that Ian has done, have had some good payoffs. Darkest Storm had a decent payoff. The 175th 175th anniversary 3-part story arc had a good payoff. Let's see. The 198 to 200 arc had a good payoff, decent payoff. The year-long Ein Dominion arc / Journey to the East arc, which was in Sonic Universe, had a decent payoff. And I guess you could say the current story arc we're in right now should be following in that category. Now, Sasuke419 does bring up some things, like, they weren't too much, 19 wasn't much of a fan of the whole Sally Khan thing, and it's all because, Sally saw a lot of Sonic in Monkey Kong, and he brings up a point, well, if that was the case, why didn't you just, put her with Sonic in the first place? Well, you see, that was the thing, that was a moot point. We see that well, it wasn't a moot point, I should say. But see, there's a reason for that. And I said it before, and Sasuke419, I hope you pay attention because I'm going to say it again. The examples I used over 2 years ago when this was happening are like this. The reason Sally was hooked up with Khan during the Iron Dominion story arc and the Journey to the East spinoff, the reason she was being hooked up was the same reason Zach Morris in Saved by the Bell was always being hooked up with a girl, either in the summer episodes of Saved by the Bell, where he was hooked up with that Stacy girl, or in the Saved by the Bell Hawaiian style, or in the Saved by the Bell movie Hawaiian style, where he was hooked up with the girl, Andrea, I think her name was. So that is what, but and here's the thing. Even though he was hooked up with them doing that movie with Andrea, and with Stacy doing the summer episodes, excuse me, it was only for those situations. It was only for that movie. It was only for the summer episodes that she was hooked up with those characters. Because afterwards, did we hear about them ever again? No. Was those relationships ever acknowledged? No. They were never acknowledged. And who became the main focus again for Zach? Kelly. And that is why when I saw Khan and Sally being hooked up in the Iron Dominion / Journey to the East story arc, I knew it was only for that story arc. Because if you're going to rebuild the relationship between the main hero and said character like Sally, then you have to do those kind of things. I mean, why do you think Zach Morris and Zach and Kelly's characters always went with different individuals, whether they were part of the main cast or not, only to eventually finally get married off in wedding in Las Vegas? It was because they were building towards that. They were gradually building towards that. I mean, the college years, when they did the college years series, that was the last piece of the puzzle. That was the last stone, that was the last brick that needed to be, cemented on, put on top. That was the last of the sculpture, last of the clay that needed to be put on the sculpture before you kind of chisel it out to perfection. That is why that happened. That is why this whole situation in Saved by the Bell was building up towards that. So that is why you had Sally with Khan. That is why you had Sonic with Fiona before that. It was all building back up to stuff like this. Now, currently, right now, if you're a Sally Sonic supporter, then yeah, this is another obstacle, another bump in the road they're going through before they get to that point, before they get to a certain point to where it may not be permanent, but at least let's say if they decided to end the series, it would end on a happy note if you're a Sonic and Sally fan. But that is why Sasuke419 that happened. Yeah, many people may have not been a fan of it, but hey, if you've watched stuff like I have, then you pretty much know what the result's going to be. Tingling my fingers. I don't know what it is. Anyway, you know exactly what the result's going to be. Now, as far as Genesis goes, I was one of those people that, unlike the person you showed in the video, like I said, we don't know if that's Laser X5 or not, but I was one of those people that did read the Genesis story arc, and I did enjoy it. And I did enjoy it, and here's why I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because it was a celebration of the 20 years that Sonic as a franchise has had. But it was also giving us an idea, especially the newer readers, the newer fans, an idea of what it would be like if Sonic would have met his friends, in the Genesis style of environment. In other words, what would it be like if he met them the way he did, by freeing them. So that was a uniqueness right there. That was the unique concept right there. And whether people like it or not, there have been some people that don't like Genesis, and, they have a right to their opinion, as you say, hey, Suzuki. But the thing is, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was okay. I didn't have no problem with it. Basically, and basically what it was to correct one thing. Excuse me. To possibly correct one thing you said, it wasn't to basically restore robotization. No, it wasn't that. What it was is Eggman. Well, maybe it was to restore robotization. I can't really say, but basically Eggman's goal was to reset the world in his image. In other words, his goal was to reset Mobius into his image, where there would be no Sonic, there would be no Sally, there would be no Freedom Fighters. Basically, there'd be nobody to stand in his way of conquering the planet. But that apparently backfired, because not only did he still have Sally there, he had, well, not only Sally, but he had Sonic, he had Rotor, he had Antoine, he had Tails. The only exceptions were like Bunny and Jeffrey St. John and all them. But again, though, that kind of played as homage to the earlier issues, where it was just Sally, Sonic, Tails, Rotor, Antoine, and Tails. And even to throw more of an homage to it, instead of calling Rotor, they called him Boomer for most of that arc. Now, as much as I did enjoy it, and I did, I have come out and said in the past that I think it would have been best if they decided to just do it as a separate arc, separate 4 issues. Because if Ian Flynn, like he said, was planning on roboticizing Sally originally in 225, then to me, if you would have taken out Genesis, made it as its own 4-part spin-off comic for that, you could have used that space in between the 26, 27, 28, 29 as the Mecha Sally arc, even if it was a short one, in which I think, my opinion, I think Ian Flynn was planning to do. That's just my opinion, though. You could have used that to really set the tone. So, but again, whether, he would have put it separate as its own 4-part issue, or 4-part comics, 4-part issues, spin-off issues, if you will, or not, I thought it was still okay. I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that, but, I understand a lot of people felt maybe it was a waste of time. I can get that. It's like, I get that. I understand they felt it was a waste of time, like it wasn't really necessary. Now, I do understand also there's some people that felt that, excuse me, I'm still waking up here a little bit. It's about 7:30 almost. But again, I do understand that some people didn't like Genesis and some people did. So basically to me it was good. I thought it was okay. But it can be controversial. There's no doubt about it. Just like 230 was. 230, there's a lot of people that agree that what Sally did was the right thing. And some have even said that her doing what she did redeemed her in the eyes of those that, saw her character get destroyed by the likes of Ken and Carl. And, they do have a point there. They have an opinion, right to that opinion. But then there are those that are like, well, wait a minute. she probably had more time on her hands. She probably wasn't thinking. She has a warp ring. Why didn't she use that? Or why didn't she have Sonic come down with her and say, Sonic, can you do this real quickly? You know, I get people kind of find the whole situation of her getting roboticized a little ridiculous. I get that. I understand that. But again, they have a right to their opinion. They have a right to their opinion, so we can't really judge them on that. But, whatever Ian's got planned for the future, obviously he's working right now on probably getting her restored. For anybody that loves, likes the character of Sally, and I like the character, who doesn't? Zara Nizarak likes Sally, there's no doubt about that. But I get, and I get people wanting to see her restored soon. I get that. I mean, yes, I admit, I'm part of a few groups. Either you like the group or not over at the DA site. But you notice that I don't post that much with a certain group anymore. It's not because I don't support that group. I mean, I've come out and I've said, it doesn't matter what group it is, I support anything Sonic. All right? And people have a right to their opinion when they create these groups, so we can't really be against them. They have a right to their opinion. Whether we agree with it, whether anybody agrees with it or not, they have a right to their opinion. So to me, those that create these controversial groups, whether they're for what's going on or against what's going on, have a right to do that. Now, again, though, like I was trying to say, I know that Ian's probably working on plans on restoring Sally back to normal, even if it's a step-by-step process. I mean, for her to acknowledge kind of like briefly that, or question, Monkey Kong when he said he loved her, that, for her to kind of like almost temporarily, just briefly, just very, very briefly break free and be like, you love me, and ask him the question in return, you love me? So it makes you know that she's still there. It makes you know that she's still there. And and for the fact, for some people to say, and Sasuke419, I think you can understand this, for some people to say that, let's say at the Sega forums, to say that she's long gone, the truth is she's not long gone. Far from it. I mean, it's like I mentioned before. It's like I mentioned before with Uncle Chuck and, and Spy Hog and, and the dragon and in the roboticized dragon and Dulcie. She's not, the fact is, her giving Robotnik Eggman the information that she did wasn't because she wanted to, it's because she had no choice. Basically, think of it this way. Think of it this way. She's roboticized. Let's go inside her mind, for example. Right now, the Sally we know, the Sally that's against Robotnik, that does anything she can to stop him, is kind of like sealed away in a kind of like a cement cell. And she can only look from outside her cell, outside the little window with the bars and everything. She can only look outside that cell and watch as her mechanized self does things that she would never do. You know what I'm saying? In fact, if you want a good example, take a look at some of the X-Men episodes of the original X-Men animated series in the 90s. There was an episode, I think around the second season or so, we had Jean Grey on a telepathic field in the mind of Rogue. And basically she was fighting the Miss Marvel character, and Miss Marvel was trying to take over Rogue's body. And basically I think there's one part that showed that Rogue got sealed away or something, just temporarily, in something. I'm not really sure. And then you take a look at part 3 of the Dark Phoenix saga. When Charles Xavier fought the Dark Phoenix inside the mind of Jean Grey, along with Jean's help, he was able to seal away the Dark Phoenix. Basically put her in some kind of a cocoon so that she wouldn't, have control of Jean's mind. She wouldn't be able to break free just yet. Or it was basically to temporarily hold her. Now you might be a little confused by that, but the point I'm trying to get across is the fact that that's exactly what's going on with Sally right now, if you want to look at it from a character standpoint, that she's right now being held prisoner inside her mind, while the mechanized part of her is taking control and doing doing the things she wouldn't do and giving away the information she wouldn't give away. Now, I'm not saying expect maybe some kind of telepathic, in the mind field battle between Mecha and Nicole eventually, or Mecha, Sally, and Sally. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I'm saying don't expect that in the way you might be thinking. But I'm just basically what I'm trying to do is give out a point of an example. An example that Sally in her Mecha form may have given Robotnik that information, but she wouldn't really be doing that if she was freed. Like I said, it goes back to Sat AM when he probed the mind of the roboticized dragon to find out about Dragon's Nest. When he plugged into the mind, or plugged into Uncle Chuck and tried to find out the location of Knothole. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, for anybody that says she's far gone, she isn't. But to the point, Sasuke419, but to what you've been trying to say, Sasuke419, I mean, I get that you don't like the fact that people, say things and talk about things without really getting the facts, and I agree upon that. I agree with you on that. I mean, again, to use as an example, Sega Genesis 4100 did a rant on me, and I basically had to counter rant him by explaining that, hey, what you said about me is not true, and here's why. And you can find that video in my channel. In fact, I'll provide a link to it as well. But again, I had to explain to him that what you've been saying about me is incorrect. You don't have your facts straight. Just like you've been telling a lot of people, hey, if you're gonna judge something, make sure, if you're gonna rant on something, make sure you have your facts correct. There's a lot of people that will rant on me and judge against me and saying that, hey, that will go out and say, hey, you not reading the comics is a waste of money. Is it a waste of money? Look, I've come out and I've told them, and I'm going to tell you this, that I'm not going to stop reading the comics. I'm just saving up. I'm just saving up to the point that when this whole thing blows over, whether it's in 250, maybe beyond that or whatever, I can give a good lengthy review. And as you said, Sasuke419, you have a right to your opinion. People have a right to their opinion. And my opinion is, my opinion is, hey, if I don't like what's happened to Sally, fine. That's my opinion. I don't like what's happened to her. And if that's one of the reasons people feel I don't want to read the comics till it's all said and done, hey, that's their opinion. And you know what? Part of it is true, but it's also, that part is true. Because here's the thing. People like myself, we can enjoy the story and everything, but because we're used to seeing the character as they are, when, we just, cannot look at that character that way. I've seen the pictures, I've seen some of the panels in the sneak previews and all that. Yeah, I've seen her in her mecha form, okay? I've seen it. But the thing is, to me, it's just, to me, I just, as a longtime fan, I can't see her like that. That's the way it is. It's kind of like right now in WWE. People cannot, people are used to seeing certain people the way they are, or seeing WWE do things the way they should be doing it. But they just cannot stand to watch WWE if it's going to be a repeating circus of the same thing over and over. To them it's like, they right now they can't, some of them can't stand WWE because they got this whole Laurinaitis thing going, and they can't stand it. They can't stand it, They can't stand watching Raw or even SmackDown if they got to deal with John Laurinaitis. They can't deal with him in charge. They cannot deal with it. They cannot stand it. It's kind of like right now with the whole situation where you're going to have John Cena feuding with Big Show again. They're like, man, how many times have we seen this again? How many times have we seen it? And, and I did a video where I explained why it's happening. But still, there are those that they feel as though it's been repeated. It's been done over and over and over again. It's like, how many times do we have to deal with this? We don't want to watch Raw or SmackDown if it's going to be centered around this again. You see, those may not be the best examples, but that's what I'm saying. Just because, you don't want to watch something doesn't mean you're going to stop watching it. You'll still keep up with what's going on. That's why when I go online, I read the live ongoing results of Raw, because Raw, airs later here on the West Coast, because I don't have, because I don't have an HD TV, I only have standard still. But still, it airs later for me at the 9 o'clock hour. But the point I'm trying to get across is just because if I read the results and everything and then hear what other people have to say and decide, you know what, I'm not going to watch it tonight, doesn't mean I'm going to stop watching it. Heck, when they did the whole John Cena Nexus deal, I stopped watching for a while because I felt, oh, great, it's another, somebody's a slave deal kind of deal. How many times have we dealt with that? But did I stop watching WWE? Did I stop watching it? No, I didn't. You see, the thing is, it doesn't matter how long something's going to happen or how long a certain storyline is going to occur. If we don't like what's going on, doesn't mean we're going to stop watching something. Excuse me for a second. Sorry about that. I had to bring my cat in. I'll bring my family's cat in. But anyway, like I said, just because you don't want to see something for the next few weeks or few months doesn't mean you're going to stop watching it entirely. It just means you're trying to send a message like, hey, we've seen this before. We're trying to, it means basically we're trying to send a message like, look, we've seen this before. We've dealt with this before. It's time for you to stop. It's time for you to change. It's time for you to come up with something different and original. Now, I'm not saying the Mecha Sally thing isn't original. Yeah, she was roboticized in issue 29, but as many people have pointed out, just like I've pointed out, it was only for half of that main story. It was mainly for half, if not even that, of the main story. That was it. It wasn't for a long time. It was just for that, 5, 6 pages of that story. 5, 6, 8 pages of that story, and that was it. So her being roboticized is not original. It's been done before, but her being in this predicament where she's been modified, weaponized, whatever, yeah, that's kind of new. Because even Ken Penders and Carl Bowles all say this. because I'll give Ian credit on this. He's done something that they never did. They never roboticized her. They never, well, they did roboticize her, but they never weaponized her. They never mechanized her. Well, not mechanized, but never modified her. You know, they never did any of that. And they didn't put it to this extension of a time. So the only question is, how long is she going to be like this? The answer is, a lot of people are feeling it could be for another 12 months, another year or so. A lot of people are feeling it's going to be for another, let's see, where are we right now? Going on 238, so they're feeling another maybe 23 issues, perhaps. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, another 23, 33 issues, perhaps? We're not really sure. Well, 23, actually, but you get my point. Another 23 issues, so basically another 2 years. No one really knows. But depending on what happens, hopefully it'll be something that a lot of people will be satisfied with, they'll enjoy, and they won't look at Ian as saying, Ian, you just basically shit on everybody with this arc. You basically built up everything, and here's something, and you're giving us a climax that, you know, doesn't add up to anything. So hopefully that won't be the case. But again, the point I'm getting across is Sasuke419. You made some great points, and I agree with a lot of them. But hopefully I've helped out in response to you. Because I know a lot of people may not agree with what you say. A lot of people may not agree with what I say. But again, you brought up some good points. And that's all I really want to say. I mean, you know, well, there is one thing, though. You say that, now that I think about it, you said Endgame was the only major arc that really had anything going for it, for the Penders and Bowlers eras, and you're right. But you also forget that they did do another arc that extended for quite some time, from about, I think, 78 all the way to up to, 84, 85, I'm not really sure. And it even included a 48-page special of the Sonic Super Specials with Sonic Adventure. And basically it added in and included one 48-page super special of the Sonic Super Specials entitled Sonic Adventure. And that was the Sonic Adventure adaptation that they did. And that lasted for quite some time. You do have to admit that. So if you want to look at two epic arcs, to correct myself from earlier, and to help you out, Endgame and Sonic Adventure adaptation were the only big ones they ever did that would define them. You know, but I do agree, Ian Flynn has done more, and that's a fact. So, but again, this has just been a response to you, and I know it may have been just as long as your video. So, and I apologize for that to anybody out there. But again, I thought I'd just let you know my response, know my opinions, and you got anything to respond to on that? Go ahead, comment if you want. For anybody that wants to watch Sasuke419's video, I will provide the link in the description box. I will provide the link to my counter rant that I mentioned in here to Sega Genesis 4100. Comment down below, guys, if you like, and I will talk to y'all later.